everyone. Welcome to This Day. It is Wednesday, December 11th. I'm your host, Bree Cox Kennedy. On today's show, we are going to be talking with Irvine Barclay Theater and Sarah Snow. She is going to tell us everything we need to know about the Nutcracker. That's going to be such a fun interview. And then later in the show, Michael's going to be here talking with Dr. Valentina Bonev with Breast Link and RadNet. I know they're going to have a lot of very important information, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we want to keep you informed, and we have a New Year's Eve dinner and dance coming up. Ring in the new year with dinner and dancing Tuesday, December 31st. That's going to be held at Clubhouse 5. Guests are welcome to join at 4:30 p.m. and dinner starts at 5. The Trip will perform from 6 to 9:30 p.m. and I believe we're going to be watching the New Year's Eve ball drop at 9 o'clock. The event will feature dinner and dancing, cocktails, complimentary champagne will be served at 9 p.m. Tickets are $70 and are on sale now in the Clubhouse 5 office. Let's take a look at our weather. Lots of cloud cover this week. High today is going to be 71, but lows are hovering in the 40s. I don't think we have any threats of rain, but it's still going to be pretty chilly and lots of clouds. Next up is our sunrise sunset segment. Sunrise this morning was at 6:46 a.m. Sunset is at 4:43 p.m. Look at those beautiful clear skies. Cole got a shot of those on his flight through Central Coast, California. Gorgeous shot. We've got a couple meetings to tell you about, and then later in the show, Irvine Barclay Theater. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Harvard Eye Associates. We're focused on your eye care at all three of our Orange County locations.
Our new location in Laguna Hills, Orange, and San Clemente.
Each facility features the latest in advanced technology and diagnostic equipment.
And a trusted collection of doctors that care about your vision and your quality of life.
We deliver what matters to you and your family.
Harvard Eye Associates, the future of vision today.
Hi, my name is Dr. Shandeep Thung, and I'm a breast surgical oncologist. And today, I'd like to spend a little time talking about family history and risk for breast cancer. Most breast cancer, believe it or not, is actually not hereditary. Only about 10 to 15% of breast cancers in this country are related to your family or gene mutations. It's important to understand your family tree so that you can provide this information to your physician so they can properly assess your risk for breast cancer. It's important to understand this risk because there may be an indication for you to start screening sooner and potentially with more than just mammography.
And welcome back. The folks at RadNet and BreastLink want you to be aware of what's going on in the community. I want to welcome Dr. Valentina Bonev to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about how we get an assessment in the first place. If a woman feels like there might be something off, they're feeling a lump, is that the first place to start, or should we be starting with mammograms even if we don't think anything's wrong at a certain age?
So national guidelines recommend mammograms once a year starting at 40 years old for women who are average risk. If someone's considered high risk, such as they have a family history of breast cancer, they may start getting mammograms earlier, such as in their 30s. If a woman notes a change in their breast, like a lump, skin changes, a rash, nipple discharge, nipple inversion, we want them to go to their doctor immediately to be evaluated. The standard of care, though, is a mammogram once a year and then a breast exam once a year. So it's important that you do both because no one exam is perfect.
If there is a family history, then it should start a little earlier. Are there also genetic tests that you can take to see if you are carrying that genetic marker with you?
Correct. So we do offer genetic testing to patients who, let's say, have a family history and maybe their mom, their sister, their aunts, their grandmother of breast cancer or other cancers such as ovarian cancer. So what genetic testing entails is it's a blood draw or it's a saliva swab if you're not very good with blood draws. And we're testing for gene mutations that may have been passed down from your parents. And if you do test positive for a gene mutation, we know, depending on that gene, what cancer it may be associated with. So for example, you may have heard BRCA.
Right.
There are 2 BRCA genes. Both of them are associated with breast cancer. So we know patients who test positive for a mutation in that gene have a very high risk of breast cancer in their lifetime. So at least 60% risk of developing breast cancer.
Higher than the average.
Exactly, versus 12% for the average population. So we know that it does not mean that just because you have a gene mutation, you will 100% get that cancer, but it means that you are very high risk and that we will monitor you more closely. So it may not only just be mammograms and breast exams, it could be ultrasound, it could also be breast MRI. So it's just very important to be evaluated by your physician. Hey, do I qualify for genetic testing? Should I get it? And then talk about the potential impacts of genetic testing for that patient.
So that information is just kind of something that people can value and they'll know and they'll have that in there in terms of how they monitor themselves and how they get their care, right?
Correct. So it's bringing awareness. So awareness is power, and that's one of BreastLink's motto, especially for Breast Cancer Awareness Month this October. So if we are aware that you're high risk because you, let's say, have a family history or you have a gene mutation associated with breast cancer, we're going to observe you more closely.
Now, are there genetic tests that go on? Do we do that multiple times, or does the one test really kind of cover everything?
So what I offer is a comprehensive panel, which is around 71 genes tested for not only breast cancer, but ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, et cetera, because there's a lot of overlap with the different cancers with each other. And if you get a comprehensive panel, usually you just need one test. I've had patients who've undergone genetic testing decades ago, like maybe 10 plus years ago, and at the time, testing was very limited. So they were only tested, for example, for only 2 genes, BRCA1 and BRCA2. They tested negative. Now we know that there are other genes in addition to BRCA associated with breast cancer. So now when they do testing, now we do the expanded panel, and some of those patients who tested negative for BRCA actually test positive for another gene mutation that we now know of. So it's important, even if you've had testing, bring those results from the past to your physician and see, do you need to have updated expanded panel testing?
When folks get screened and they get that news that, hey, it's breast cancer, and after the test, those comes in, what is it like for someone to come into that world? It's a scary experience. There's all sorts of BRCA and all sorts of things that they're hearing for the first time. How do you as a physician not only deal with the cancer, but also the patient?
That's a great question. So a lot of the times I'm breaking the news to patients, which is like dropping a bomb on them. And I tell them, I'm gonna give you a big overview of your diagnosis and your treatment. I know it's a lot of information, but I just want you to know that this is not life-threatening and you're gonna have a full team behind you. So at BreastLink, they're not only working with me, the surgeon, they're gonna see a medical oncologist who I'm gonna refer them to, a radiation oncologist, physical therapist for their recovery after surgery, a plastic surgeon if they're interested in reconstruction. And then we also have BreastLink Angels, which is unique to our practice. So these are former patients who've actually had breast cancer, and we link them up with our current patients who have breast cancer. So maybe I have a young mom in her 30s with 3 small kids. We're gonna link her up with a BreastLink Angel who was in that similar situation, because they're going to be going through different experiences versus
Right.
someone who's, let's say, 70 years old with a early stage breast cancer, right? So there is a lot of course, anxiety going into it. It's very overwhelming. And so what my job is to provide them not only the clinical support, but emotional support, and let them know that I'm calm. I'm going to let me worry about everything. I don't want you to worry. I need you to be in a great mental state and a great physical state so you can get through your treatment successfully.
And there's a difference between, like you said, a 30-year-old young woman who is diagnosed than a 70, or the treatment plans are going to be different, right?
Yes.
The aggressiveness of the cancer might be different.
Yes.
How does the entire, like your cancer panel come together with the oncologist, you and others, and come together and make that team approach? From what treatment do we start first? Do we do surgery? Do we do chemo? Do we do radiation? How does that kind of come together?
So it's a multidisciplinary approach where we're all actively communicating with the other physicians and with the patient as well. So we discuss the patient's case, and for example, a young 30-year-old is more likely going to have an aggressive breast cancer. So we're probably going to initiate aggressive treatment, which could include chemotherapy first, followed by surgery. She may need radiation therapy. We discuss that timing as a team, then we bring it to the patient and say, hey, this is what we talked about your case, this is what we recommend, and this is why we recommend it. What, do you feel comfortable with that plan? If the patient does, great, we'll initiate treatment. If they're not, then we bring it back to the team and say, the patient's very apprehensive about chemotherapy because these are her concerns. Let's go ahead and address that. Because, for example, with chemotherapy, patients are very scared about it. Patients are also nervous going into surgery. It's very understandable. A lot of my patients, they've never had surgery before in their life, and now they have not only a breast cancer diagnosis, and then they have to undergo general anesthesia for surgery. So we're just all there to support the patient, but it's very key for us as physicians to communicate with each other, and then to communicate with the patient, and then to listen to their concerns. So why are they, let's say, against treatment? For example, some patients are like, I don't want to do radiation. Okay, why not? You know what? I don't want to do it because it's too far away from my house. It's an inconvenience. Okay, then let's find something closer to you, because the ultimate goal is to treat the patient so they never have to deal with this again.
Now, has chemo evolved over the years in terms of, like, are there more kind of biomarkers that you can tailor and make a chemo to now that where the side effects aren't as great anymore?
So chemo has definitely evolved, and honestly, the whole breast cancer treatment field has evolved to be more individualized. If when you came in, let's say 10, 20 years ago, pretty much every patient with a breast cancer diagnosis got chemotherapy, then they had a very extensive surgery where usually the entire breast was removed, and then a lot of lymph nodes were also removed. So this is a more morbid procedure with longer recovery. And then a lot of patients got probably additional chemotherapy and even radiation therapy. Now we know that patients don't need all of that therapy. In some ways, it can actually be more harmful to them. So we can tailor it based on the biological markers, and we can tell how aggressive a tumor is. So we don't have to offer such aggressive treatment to every single patient. Now with widespread screening mammography and patients being aware of what to look for, a lot of patients are presenting very early. So with very small cancers, meaning they don't need to undergo chemotherapy. They can have a lumpectomy, which is just removing a small part of the breast. They may or may not need radiation therapy, especially if they're 70 plus years old.
I was going to say, for the older generation that watches this program here, the treatment plan has changed drastically in terms of, okay, we're not going to do the breast removal, we're just going to maybe do a lumpectomy, right?
Correct. So women who come in who are 70 plus years old with a breast cancer diagnosis are usually diagnosed with a small breast cancer that's considered less aggressive and hormone receptor positive, so expressing estrogen and progesterone receptor. If that's the case, they can undergo a lumpectomy. They probably won't need radiation, and they won't need chemotherapy. So the only other thing in addition to surgery will probably be recommended is something called endocrine therapy, which is targeting those positive receptors, and that just lowers the risk of that cancer coming back or a new cancer coming back in the future. So the point is, just because you're diagnosed doesn't mean you're going to have to undergo such extensive treatment. Patients do really well with treatment, even if they're in their 70s, because we've now tailored it down and have really made it as least invasive, but with maximum treatment impact as possible.
All right, that is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you take away any message, make sure you get your screening done and make sure you see your physician. Dr. Valentina Bonev, thank you so much for joining us from RadNet.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.
Who is RadNet? You've probably heard our name and seen our commercials, but you still might not know who we are. RadNet is the largest provider of outpatient imaging services in the United States, with over 8,000 employees and almost 400 imaging centers in 7 states. Likely, if you have had diagnostic imaging, you have experienced RadNet's high-quality, cost-effective imaging services. With 35 years of expertise, RadNet is leading into the future with advanced technology and the very latest AI technology. We are positioned for the future of healthcare. RadNet, leading radiology forward.
Village Television presents Friday Films, only on Village Television. Fridays at 2 and 6 p.m. Foreign films, dramas, and comedies. Award-winning films, romance and mystery. Independent films. Every Friday, only on Village Television.
For the 17th year, Festival Ballet Theater returns to Irvine Barclay Theater to present its critically acclaimed production, The Nutcracker. Here to tell us more, Sarah Snow. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and to represent Festival Ballet Theater. It is the premier professional ballet company in Southern California. Most of the dancers who you would see if you came to see a production of The Nutcracker are trainees at Southland Ballet Academy. And the two companies, the company and the academy, sort of go hand in hand.
They work together.
And put on 2 full-length ballet productions per year. And of course, the beloved Nutcracker is the one that hits stages starting in early December every year.
Why do you think The Nutcracker is so enduring to so many audiences throughout time?
You know, it's so interesting. So I'm here representing the theater company because I'm one of the moms. My daughter both of my daughters train at Southland Academy. One of my daughters is dancing the role of Clara this year. So I'm at the studio a lot. I've been at the rehearsals, but I'm also at the theater for the productions. And I see these audiences come in, little kids, little girls who are 3 years old in their frilly dresses, all the way up through grandmothers and grandfathers.
Right, it transcends genders.
It a tradition. It's just so interesting how it becomes such a tradition. And I think it's because the storyline is easy to follow. The sets and costumes are just spectacular.
They are.
And the music is familiar. And I think people like tradition and familiarity.
Yeah, and they've got that mix between these ethereal dancers, mischievous mice, you know, these dancing flowers. I mean, you've kind of got everything.
Yes, exactly. And I think one of the fun things about coming to the Festival Ballet Theater production of The Nutcracker, which is at the Barclay Theater, is that you do get to see the young and old dancers also. I mean, actually all ages, because you have Drosselmeyer, who's played by an older gentleman every year, and then you have dancers as young as 5 years old who are playing the little party girls and the little mice and all of that. So you have all the ages. We also, I should mention, bring in professional dancers every year to dance the roles of Sugar Sugar Plum Fairy, and the Cavalier. So we have dancers coming in from Joffrey Ballet, Houston Ballet, Oklahoma City Ballet, and then, of course, New York City Ballet. So every production, those lead roles are played by professional dancers who come in. And this year, we're really excited because two of the dancers, Tyler Donatelli and Courtney Connor, both got their starts and did their training, their early training at Southland Ballet
Is
Academy.
that right?
Mm-hmm. And they're now dancing professionally in companies around the country.
It came full circle.
Yeah.
So do the little ones, the 3, 5, 6-year-olds, do they look up at these professionals and say, oh my gosh, someday I just want to play that role?
This is one of the coolest things. They get to be backstage with not only these 15 and 18-year-old dancers who it's incredible the level of talent that teenage dancers have. So they get to be backstage watching them walk up and down the hallway in their gorgeous costumes, but then also these professional dancers. So even the highest level of trainee gets to watch the professionals on stage. And when they're doing their pas de deux, which is the dance between the Cavalier and the Sugar Plum Fairy, or the Sugar Plum is doing her solo, they're all just in the wings, just sitting there watching these dancers. And some of them are watching them saying, what can I learn from them? How does she do her arms? What does she do differently with her feet? And some are just watching in just total awe.
Taking it all in.
You know, I want to mention
Fantastic
really quickly
experience.
that there are two other really special experiences that go hand in hand with the Nutcracker. There's a Nutcracker tea that's a really fun tradition, and that happens before every single production. So there are 14 productions kicking off this Saturday, the 7th, 14 productions between this Saturday, the 7th, all the way through Christmas Eve, the 24th. And there's a Nutcracker tea before every single performance where you can come in and you hear the story of the Nutcracker and you meet the dancers. They actually come in and they meet the attendees of the tea, and there are tea sandwiches and champagne for the adults and all of that. And there's also, as far as we can tell, so we're claiming it, the world's largest pop-up Nutcracker boutique in the lobby of the Barclay Theater. It's one of those things where people walk in and they just ooh and ah over all of the things. I mean, rows and rows and tables full of nutcrackers and the beautiful little tree ornaments.
Darling.
This is
Absolutely
a Clara
darling.
one. Shirts, so there's clothing, there are the books, something for everyone there.
My goodness. So are people just coming there for the boutique, do you think?
In theory, you're supposed to have a ticket to be able to come into the theater. So tickets are available at thebarclay.org for all of the shows, and they range in price. So there's, again, something for everyone. And you're supposed to show a ticket to be able to walk in, but I think sometimes people say, sorry, I just need to shop quickly.
Exactly. And are they shopping before or after the show, or both?
All during.
All during.
A lot of them try to get there early enough to do their shopping first. They come out at intermission and they shop halfway through, and then they shop again at the end. It's so fun, actually, to see the grandmas with their little granddaughters walking through, and they let them pick what they want, which is, of course, like 20 items.
Of course it is.
And then they come back at the end and pare it down a bit.
That is, what a great experience for those young people. And for the families all the way through, as you said, from grandchildren all the way through to grandparents. Family tradition every year. So if folks haven't started it yet, they should get started this year.
It's a great way to kick off the holiday season. It will truly get you in the spirit.
You know, I remember going to Long Beach and seeing the Nutcracker.
Another really great production. Yes. Yeah, Long Beach Theater puts on a gorgeous Nutcracker, and they have a beautiful theater to perform in also. And Festival Ballet Theater is a nonprofit theater company, which sets it apart a bit from some of the other professional companies, which just makes it special as well.
Wonderful. Sarah, I
Are we looking for signals?
This is amazing. I really hope that our community gets out to the Irvine Barclay Theater and sees the performance and watches your daughter. I'm sure she's doing amazing.
All of those dancers. Yeah, it's a really, it's exciting to watch them as they go from rehearsals starting at the end of summer, truly, all the way through. Last night they were at the theater from about 3 p.m. till 9:45 p.m. doing
that
dress
is-
rehearsal and tech rehearsal and all of that. So
Crunch time.
they're ready.
Thrilling.
They're ready to welcome all of the audience.
Excited to go.
Yes, hopefully they
Where
are.
can we get tickets?
Yeah, tickets are at thebarclay.org, or you can call the Barclay Theater box office. And the Barclay Theater, of course, is on the campus of UC Irvine. It's a beautiful theater. Parking is easy, in and out is easy,
Perfect.
which is always good. And of course, come early so you have time to visit the boutique.
Get your
And
shopping in.
if you want to, join us for one of the Nutcracker Teas also. Those are really fun. And it's all run by volunteers because it's a nonprofit theater company, but really, truly putting on just world-class productions.
Wonderful. Well, with that, Sarah, thank you so much
You're
for
so
joining
welcome.
us
Thank you
today.
for having me.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome to OC Eye Care, home of the first customizable lens implant with a light adjustable lens, making it possible to see clearly at near, intermediate, and distance.
Before I had cataract surgery, I struggled to see like long distance. I couldn't read tiny print. I had 2 light treatments each eye, and neither of them were painful at all. They last about 90 seconds. After the surgery, I was pretty much just back to normal life in like 2 days. I absolutely would do surgery all over again.
For some of you, it may be time to replace your dated windows and doors. I'm a resident of Laguna Woods and have served the community for 10 years. As a women-owned business, you can trust Window Jazz to provide seamless service from the moment we meet to the completion of the job. Most jobs are completed in just 1 day.
Window Jazz put windows in my home. The service was amazing, the price couldn't be beat, and I would recommend them to anybody.
Call Window Jazz now to schedule your free consultation.
All right, folks, next up, we've got our Friday and Saturday movie preview. We've got a couple of good ones for you this week. Driving Miss Daisy will be showing on Friday, sponsored by Hogue, 2 p.m. with subtitles, 6 p.m. without. Driving Miss Daisy tells the touching story of an old Jewish woman and her African-American chauffeur in the American South, whose relationship deepens and improves over the years, offering a poignant look at friendship and societal change. I don't think I've ever seen that one all the way through, so I'm going to make a point and try to watch that one. It sounds just heartfelt. And then on Saturday, our movie is Reagan. I was able to see this film, private preview, at the Port Theater. I highly recommend it. It's a drama based on the life of Ronald Reagan, offering a compelling portrayal of the 40th president's journey from his childhood to his time in the Oval Office. Leaning on nostalgia, it blends its political legacy with personal depth. Star of that is Dennis Quaid, and it's brought to us by City of Hope. Let's take another quick look at our forecast for the next 5 days. We are cooling down, almost a 10-degree swing between today and tomorrow. High of 69 down to 61 on Thursday. Cloudy and chilly. Climbing back up a little bit, but still hovering in the 60s for highs and 40s for lows. So I guess we are approaching winter. The weather's changing for us just on time for a beautiful holiday season. So from all of us here at ThisDay, we hope you make yours a beautiful one, and we will see you here tomorrow.